to use new infrastructure, which will mean that we can get more freight onto rail. And more freight onto rail is not just good for the economy, it absolutely is, but it's good for the planet too, and we need to do whatever we can to decarbonise the way in which we transport freight around the country. We can take hundreds of millions of miles off our motorways, and as somebody who's just stood on the side of a motorway after a blowout of a tyre, I can tell you that the majority of those vehicles going past me at 70 miles an hour, blowing me off the lane, what's it called, the hard shoulder. But the majority of those were HGVs, and we could free up lots and lots of motorway space by doing what we're proposing to do. The other thing is that in the past, previous governments have said to us what we were expected to accept. This has been a completely different way around. This has been true collaboration. This has been about consideration from both parties about what we can actually achieve together. It's been, dare I say, an adult and grown-up conversation that we've never had for 14 years. And I'd like to thank both the Secretary of State for Transport, Hardy Alexander, of course Peter and everybody else who's been part of that, the other Secretaries of State who've been involved in this. But all of this needs the sign-off of one particular department, and that's the Treasury. And to have the Chancellor of the Exchequer here today showing that she's backing the North, that she understands that we can rebalance the economy of the whole country by backing the North, is really important to every single one of us here. And you've got lots of leaders who are present today as well, because this is vital for the regeneration and the renaissance of their areas. I'll just give you one example of this, just to make it come alive, because we talk about huge figures and we talk about, billions of pounds. But you might remember the Chancellor announced a new way, a place-based way of funding certain areas, and we were one of the pilots in that. And there's a place in Liverpool which includes Central Station. Central Station is the most used station, underground station outside of London, underground station, because Tracy always claims that Leeds above ground station is the third most, I think, in the country. So, see, I'm remembering these things that have been told in my ear. But Central Station could be the catalyst for huge renaissance in the city centre of Liverpool. And myself and Councillor Liam Robinson, who's the leader of Liverpool City Council, are absolutely determined that that project, the stuff that we're doing in Lime Street, the new line that we will have between Liverpool and Manchester, all of those things all come together in a place-based approach to developing these fantastic things that will last for generations. And I'll just finish on the fact that I said 200 years ago we had the first passenger rail system in the world, and that led to new industries being built, to housing and all sorts of ancillary benefits, to new skills being developed. It's exactly what will happen with what we're doing across the whole Northern Corridor. Mayors aren't just responsible for transport. There's a whole host of different things that are linked into this. It will be a really comprehensive way in which we can get economic growth, genuine economic growth, with billions of pounds to our local economies. And that's because we have a Labour government backing local leaders and regional mayors. And the way in which we've approached this is down to, I suppose, the foresight, the leadership, the courage that the Chancellor has shown us all. And with that, I'd love to introduce to you the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And Obviously, I'm here first and foremost as Chancellor of the Exchequer, but I am also the Member of Parliament for Leeds West and Pudsey and have been a Leeds MP for almost 16 years now. And for me, this isn't just political, this is personal, because for a long time, the north of England and my constituents have been let down and been fed false promises. And I'm determined that we are now finally going to deliver, and that this Labour government is going to deliver what previous governments have promised but failed to get over the line, and that is Northern Powerhouse Rail. And why I think it is so important is because of some of the things that Tracy and Steve have said, but they could equally have been said by Kim and Oliver and David and Andy, because all of our regions of the north have got huge potential. In Manchester City region, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the whole of Western Europe, particularly in areas of new technologies. In Leeds, we are the financial square mile outside of London, and we're doing crazy innovation and development here. In Liverpool, you're a centre for our life sciences. In York and North Yorkshire, we're doing amazing stuff with agri-tech. In the northeast, we are leading in areas like clean energy. And in South Yorkshire, Oliver and the team are pioneering new investments in defence and in aerospace. We've got so much potential and so much going for us in the north of England. But too often that has been despite our infrastructure and despite the national government rather than because of it. And I want this government, with me as Chancellor, to be a partner to the north of England and a partner to our brilliant mayors in the north of England to actually deliver on the potential that we have. We're delivering a lot, but we could do so much more if we work together. Now, already we are upgrading the Transpennine route, and that's incredibly exciting with the electrification of that line, with more frequent services, more reliable services, connecting towns and cities in the north. But this takes it a step further. Today we're unlocking just over £1 billion of money to start purchasing the land and do that detailed development work, because we're setting out the route today and the stations along the journey, but there's more work to do as we do that detailed scoping, and obviously Peter will lead on that work, but with the mayors, not doing it to the mayors or doing it to local communities, but working in partnership, because that is the right approach. And Northern Powerhouse Rail will be a mixture of new railway stations, new lines, and also upgrading what we already have. And we're going to learn the lessons from HS2. HS2 got out of control. Building a BAT tunnel, well, it's good that the BATs have got their tunnel, but the north hasn't got HS2 because of the cost overruns and the bad mistakes that were made. So we're going to phase this, and it will be done in 3 phases. We'll start in Yorkshire, where we'll be improving connections between Sheffield and Leeds, Bradford and Leeds, and York and Leeds. And then we'll be moving over to Liverpool and Manchester, with a brand new route connecting Manchester and Liverpool through Warrington Bank Quay and through Manchester Airport, better linking the whole of the north of England with the rest of the world and the huge opportunities that there are there for investment and exports as well. And then the third phase, building on what we're doing with Transpennine Express today, better links between Leeds and Manchester, those 2 powerhouses of the north. But by the early 2030s, I want people to feel the benefits of these investments. I don't want to have to wait until the whole line is built for anyone to get any benefit. And I also want to overcome the understandable cynicism that exists today of broken promises and being let down too many times. So breaking that down into phases will mean that people will see not just the benefits of the Transpennine route upgrade in the months and years to come, but also the benefits of Northern Powerhouse Rail. But this is also about more than just linking up our cities, as important as this is. We're also announcing today a better transport infrastructure in Rotherham. We're working with Kim on a new line for County Durham, the Leamside line, because we want all of the north to feel the benefits. And we also want all of the north to feel the benefits with regional, more localised transport, which is why in the spending review we announced a link for Washington to the metro in the northeast. It's why we announced new stations for the tram in Manchester, taking it to Stockport, to Bury and to Oldham. And it's why we're going to bring mass transit to Leeds and to West Yorkshire with spades in the ground in 2028. And mass transit, Tracy, means a tram. So these commitments of this government go beyond Northern Powerhouse Rail, because I know the potential that we have here in the north of England, and I'm determined that this government, with me as Chancellor, will back that rhetoric with hard cash, because it is cash that builds railways, it is brass tacks that gets things done, and we're committing those to our priority, the north of England. Better connections, more investment, more jobs, paying decent wages. Our economic plan is to bring growth to all parts of the country with good jobs, paying decent wages, improving living standards for working people. That is the right plan, and we're delivering on it. Thank you very much. We're going to take a few questions now. I'm going to start with Harry Horton from ITV.
I'll stand down here, sorry. Harry Horton, ITV News. As you said, people in the north have heard these promises many times before. Your party might not be in government in 5 years' time. Why should people believe that these plans will actually be delivered?
Yeah. Well, look, I said at the beginning, and it's difficult to believe that I've been the MP for almost 16 years, but I have. And so I have been there for each of those broken promises over the last decade and a half. And so I do understand the cynicism. But we're unlocking money today. And in the spending review next year, we'll be unlocking the next lot of money to fund these investments. But people can already see the £11 billion we're putting into the Transpennine route upgrade, and seeing the difference that that is making to their journey times and regeneration of towns between Manchester and Leeds. Now, look, I can't answer for other political parties. The Tories had their chance. They had 14 years and they didn't deliver any of this. And Reform are now saying that they will cancel Northern Powerhouse Rail just as we're putting the money into it. Now, I'm not going to write their leaflets for them, but if they're going to say on their leaflets that they're going to take £45 billion out of the north of England, that's up to them, and they can sell that on the doorstep. But I'll tell you what will be in our next manifesto, and that will be committing in full to Northern Powerhouse Rail to link our towns and our cities, because that's the right thing. But in the end, it's up to voters to decide how they want. But with Labour, you get investment with the north of England. You see that today. You'll see that in our next manifesto as well. I'll take a question now from Rob from Sky.
Thank you, Rob Powell, Sky News. Chancellor, I guess by their nature, these are long-term projects. But given your government keeps U-turning on short-term projects, how can anyone have any faith that you'll see through this big long-term plan?
Well, I'm not going to apologise for making long-term plans. We've already signed off a third runway at Heathrow, a second runway at Gatwick, the Oxcam corridor. We are already investing in the Transpennine route upgrade. Electrification has already happened between Stalybridge and Manchester. It's happening between Huddersfield and Leeds. So these are not hollow promises. They're things that my first budget unlocked £120 billion of additional capital spending. Is why, as well, we're able to sign off Sizewell C and small modular reactors. We've got a plan for growth. It is the right plan. It is based on bringing investment into the UK. Yes, in this case, in terms of rail, but that rail is just the start of it. This is about attracting more investment, both domestic and global, to the north of England, with better housing, more good jobs, paying decent wages. And just on the sort of story today, which I must say I do think has been rather overwritten on digital ID. The Prime Minister said last year that to be able to work in the UK, you would need to be able to verify electronically, digitally, that you had a right to work here. That is absolutely the case. The question is whether you can use an e-passport or an e-visa or a new digital ID. To be honest, I'm pretty agnostic about that. What I don't want is people who are illegal in this country working illegally in this country and undercutting workers that are already here. That is the commitment we made, and that is a commitment we are delivering on. Catherine from GB News.
Thank you, Catherine Forster, GB News. You talk about £120 billion of capital investment, but you're actually only allocating £1.1 billion to this in this Parliament. A lot of this is going to take to the 2030s, 2040s. The Prime Minister says you're rolling up your sleeves, but isn't there actually a lack of ambition here? And also, if I may, 13 U-turns and counting. What do you say to people who are not sure that this government knows what it's doing? Thank you.
Well, first of all, in my first budget, first spending review, we unlocked £11 billion for the Transpennine route upgrade, something that the previous government promised on many occasions but never managed to deliver. Now, that is a service that many of us here use frequently, and now you can feel the difference when you leave Manchester and go to Stalybridge. It's electrified. It's not electrified between Stalybridge and Huddersfield, but we will electrify it. It then is electrified again between Huddersfield and Leeds. That's only possible because of the money that we have put in. So when people say, how can we believe that you're going to make this transport investment, I say, start to judge us on our record, because already we are delivering for the north of England with better transport infrastructure. And by breaking down Northern Powerhouse Rail into 3 phases, this is not something that will be in 20 years' time. This is something that we'll see in the early 2030s. But it's not the only investment. Whether it is mass transit in West Yorkshire, new tram stops and new metro stops in the northeast, or in Greater Manchester, we are already delivering on the commitments we've made. And as I just said in my answer to Rob, you know, if you are going to get fixated on whether it is one particular form of digital ID to verify you can work, oh, that's fine. I care about the practicalities and what we're trying to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve is to stop illegal immigration into the UK. And at the moment, you don't have to verify electronically, digitally, that you have a right to work in this country. Ergo, we have a lot of people working illegally in this country. We're cracking down on that in a way the previous government didn't do, and we remain committed to that. We've got a plan to grow the economy. We were the second fastest growing economy in the G7 last year, according to the IMF. We've had 6 cuts in interest rates. Inflation is on the way down. People are getting £150 off of their energy bills from April, as well as rail fares and prescription charges being frozen. We've got a plan, we're sticking to it, and we're delivering for working people. Claire from Channel 4 News.
Hiya. Claire Fallon, I cover the North for Channel 4 News.
Even better.
You talked about learning the lessons from HS2, and it just occurred that isn't the lesson the North learned from HS2 that actually the money might run out, they might not get to you before it all gets cut? And with that in mind, with the sequencing that you've set out, with doing Yorkshire first and then doing Manchester to Liverpool, can that be perceived as kind of being a carrot-shaped incentive to keep Andy Burnham in line?
We've worked on this plan with everybody, and what is happening right now is the electrification of the Manchester to Leeds line, the Transpennine route upgrade. We can deliver that quicker than we can build a new railway line, and it delivers tangible benefits for people in Manchester, in Rochdale, in Stalybridge, and right across Greater Manchester. And it also delivers for people in West Yorkshire, because do you know what? I love the mayors, but the people I really want to deliver for are the people in those areas who rely on this public transport to get them to work and college and all the rest of it. But we've worked on these plans with the mayors. We've got all 6 of our Labour Northern mayors here today, and we're jointly committed to this project. I'll take a question. Is it Tom from the Mirror?
Alex from the Mirror.
Alex.
You talked about how important this is for the North, but a lot of it isn't going to materialise until the 2030s and beyond. Are you worried that the time all this takes to build risks leaving a generation behind right now?
Well, I wish we could have got started on this 14 years ago. Believe you me, Alex. I've been an MP for almost 16 years. A lot of those were wasted in opposition whilst, you know, frankly, the Labour Party had a fight with itself rather than trying to govern the country. We're in power now. We've only been in power for 18 months, but we're already delivering on our plan. We are upgrading the Transpennine route. We've got that money flowing into city regional transport. We're taking money off of people's energy bills. So mirror readers from April will be getting £150 off their bills. The rail fares on the railways that we do have will be frozen this year, the first time that's happened in 30 years, and we've frozen prescription charges for the second year in a row. So we are delivering now for people, but I'm not going to apologise for making the right long-term decisions as well. But I want the long-term to be as quick as possible, which is why we are phasing Northern Powerhouse Rail. We're not going to wait for the whole thing to be built between Liverpool and York to get the benefits anywhere on that journey. And that's why we are confident, the mayors are confident, Peter is confident, that in the early 2030s, people will see the benefits. And the young people that I met today who are on their, doing their apprenticeships here know now that they are going to have work for decades to come. And that is really important, because one of the problems with rail investment, it has been stop-start. And contractors haven't known whether to train up their people, and people haven't known whether to go into the industry. Well, the message I'm saying to the young people today is you can plan a future. You know, you can buy a home, you can get married and have kids, knowing that there's going to be work for you with your skills for years to come, and work right here where you live, where your home is in the north of England. Take a question from Ryan from The Sun.
Thank you, Chancellor. On business rates, you say that you want to help the high street, but shops, restaurants, pharmacies are asking for help on those business rates. Will you come up with a rescue package beyond pubs, or are you willing to sacrifice them, sacrifice hospitality, and slowly kill off the high street?
Well, it's a pleasure to see you as ever, Ryan. He's much nicer in real life. Ryan, during the pandemic, quite rightly, a lot of temporary support was given to the hospitality sector, particularly to pubs, because they were closed. That's not the same for the whole economy, and not the same for the whole high streets. Many shops were able to stay open during the pandemic, and so their valuations stayed pretty steady. But the valuations of pubs collapsed, and as a result, their business rates payable fell. In our business rates review, we have permanently reduced the business rate tax for our high streets and for smaller businesses. But as that temporary relief comes to an end, although we are putting £4.3 billion of temporary support in, and as those valuations have risen, the tax paid on business rates for some pubs is going up. And that's why I've said, working with the industry, that we are working on additional support for those businesses. But if you are putting in support, you've got to find the money somewhere else. We already put up taxes significantly in the two budgets to steady our public finances, which has enabled interest rates to come down 6 times. So we're working with the hospitality sector. I've been very clear that there is a package to come on top of what we've already done for pubs, and we'll be announcing that in the days ahead. Yep.
Tim Wallace at the Daily Telegraph. Chancellor, you said you want to help pubs. You also said you want to help with the cost of living. Are you reconsidering next month's increase in alcohol duty? It's going up 3.66%, which is an extra squeeze on the sector.
No, I set out the budget on November the 26th, including uprating by inflation those duties. So they are going up as planned, but only in line with inflation. The key cost of living offer that we made in the budget was £150 off of the average energy bill, freezing rail fares for the first time in 30 years, and freezing prescription charges for the second year in a row. As a whole, the Office of Budget Responsibility say that that will take around 0.4, 0.5 percentage points off of inflation, and that should give confidence to the Bank of England in terms of cutting interest rates. We've already had 6 cuts in interest rates since I became Chancellor in July 2024, taking hundreds, in some cases thousands of pounds off people's mortgages after the disaster that was done to people's mortgage rates and their living standards under Liz Truss and the Tories. I mean, I think they're still in the Tories, who knows. Who's got the next question? Yeah.
Thanks, Chancellor. It's Josh Halliday from The Guardian. You've spoke about the understandable cynicism that people have. One way to answer that might be to give detail on the money behind it.
Yeah.
You've mentioned 1.1 billion in this spending review. Can you say how much will be allocated to this in the next spending review, or give a rough idea? And secondly, if I can, 4 years ago, Labour described the Tories' NPR as an absolute betrayal and called it the Great Train Robbery. That version looks very similar to this. Is this just a massively watered down version of what the mayors actually wanted?
Well, look, the mayors can speak for themselves, but this project has the backing of all the mayors, and the big difference between Tory promises and what I'm setting out today is that this is got money behind it. £45 billion envelope for this investment. It is important that we set an envelope and set a cap, because all the lessons, and Peter will know this better than most, all the lessons from HS2 is a failure to have a plan when it was announced with a route, the failure to have an envelope or a cap, but also the failure to phase it, but just to think of it as one project, are the things that led to these huge cost overruns. And also, it's not just the money we're announcing. The Planning and Infrastructure Act means it will be quicker and easier to get the planning permission and get this over the line. And this is not just about rail. This is also about new housing. I was with Andy and Steve in Stockport before the last general election, seeing the amazing investment into housing and business there, connecting Manchester city centre and Stockport, I think 8 minutes on the train. So using the transport infrastructure to connect people with jobs, with more affordable housing. I want to see that in more parts of the country, which is why we are fast-tracking housing development around stations, because the infrastructure is already there. So investment by the government and with mayors in transport to unlock tens of billions of pounds more of growth in our northern towns and cities. And together with Tom Reardon, who we've appointed as our Northern Growth Envoy, we'll be publishing more details of our Northern Growth strategy in the spring. Oh, so we've said £45 billion in total. This next spending review is going to be in 2027. We'll set out the details then. But as you know, because of my first budget, we do have £120 billion more over this Parliament, including the period of the next spending review, to invest compared with the plans that I've inherited. And of course, some of that money will go to this. I think I'm only going to be able to take one more question. Yeah, Jen.
Hello. I just wanted to, a bit further on what you were just saying then about the next spending review. So you've only announced £1 billion towards this in this Parliament, but you're saying that...
No, not in this Parliament, in this spending review, but this spending review is up until 27.
So in this Parliament then,
Yeah.
are you saying that a significant proportion of that 45 could actually be released and start to be spent?
Yes, so the first spending review only takes us to 2027. So the 1 billion is being released to do the preparatory work and some of the land purchases. But the next spending review will allocate more money, including for the final 2 years of this Parliament. So you don't need to be worried that it's 1 billion in this Parliament. That is not the case. We've got a spending review. It's important that we're making these announcements now so that ahead of the spending review, we can work out what is needed in this Parliament and then what is needed in the years ahead.
On? Hello? But do you have any sense of how much of that 45 could then get released in this Parliament? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I realise you haven't done a spending review yet, but it doesn't sound a lot at this moment because it's 1.1 billion.
Yeah, but it's not 1.1 billion.
No, I know.
It's 1.1 billion.
I understand that, but are you expecting it to be a significant amount of money that you release in the next spending review for this?
Right. Well, if we're going to, as I've just committed to, feel the benefits in the early 2030s, there better be some money committed at the spending review. I'm the Chancellor. I'm telling you, there will be.
Can I just ask, as a follow-up, how easy was it negotiating with the mayors? Thank you.
What do we call them? A magnificence? A munificence of mayors is the new, what's it called? A collective noun for mayors, and they are magnificent. But look, we could have said, which is what previous government did, oh, here's a plan. Yeah, that is what happened, isn't it, Peter? You were around for some of that. But that was not our approach. We've worked together on this. And that is the right approach because, look, I'm an MP up here. I've got a bit of idea about what people in Leeds want, but I'm not as connected as Tracy and Andy and Steve and Kim and Oliver and David are. Of course I'm not. You know, that is why it's so important. And also beyond that, you know, we've got all of our local council leaders here as well today who've been absolutely crucial in making this plan better. You know, central government does not have a monopoly on good ideas. Some of them come from elsewhere, and a lot of them have come from our brilliant mayors and our local leaders. And we're going to continue in that vein. This is a cross-government piece of work. We've got Steve and Peter here today. Heidi's been in the House this afternoon making that announcement. We're going to work together to make this happen because that is the best way that not just going to get the costs down, but get the value. And that is something that I think sometimes is forgotten, the difference between cost and value. Of course, I want to keep costs down, but I want to get the value out of this, and that means choosing the right route and the right way of doing this. But they can all speak for themselves, and I'm sure they will. But I think we've got your backing, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go, Jen. Thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but I'm sure we'll discuss this on many other occasions. Thank you.